What are some of the critical problem areas in the church's relationship to the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community?
The conservative church, and I try to state my answer with those specific terms because there are denominations like the Metropolitan Community Church or United Church of Christ, even Disciples of Christ, some parts of the Lutherans, ECLA, some Episcopalians, Reconciling Methodists that are partially or fully affirming in their stances towards inclusion of gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people. But the conservative church has little to no understanding of some very basic issues of human sexuality in terms of orientation, and the fact that homosexuality is a normal variation on human sexuality. They don't know that. Just as heterosexuality is a normal variation on human sexuality, having a sexual orientation is not immoral or amoral. Human sexual expression and attractions are all along a spectrum, from the attractions to the opposite sex to attractions to the same sex and all the stopping points in between. There are bisexual people who are attracted to either sex. There are pansexual people that are not limited by sex or gender, and there are asexual people, people with no sexual urges, and that's not the same as celibacy. So along this spectrum of normal, expected human variations of sexual orientation, there are all of these sexual orientations, and some people don't seem to understand that. Next, the expectation to become heterosexual ignores the overwhelming evidence that people do not change their sexual orientation. As a matter of fact, recently, John Pauck, the former chairman of Exodus, the leading ministry in the conservative church that promotes homosexuality as inconsistent with the Christian faith, and he was also the leader of Love in Action, he has just taken responsibility for his former role and the damage done by such groups as Exodus and Love in Action, and apologized for his involvement in the deception that he was also caught in, so that he might even be more pleasing to God and people. The destructive consequences of trying to make a person deny their natural sexual orientations are known and acknowledged by every major medical and psychological professional group. Yet the church is still outsourcing their lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender congregants to programs such as Exodus and Desert Streams and Restored Hope Network. The damage of rejection and shaming done to gay youth by involving them in such programs that tells them that they have to change. There is research done on the damage. They are, with that rejection and shame that is put onto their lives, they are 8 times more apt to commit suicide. They're 6 times more likely to be depressed. They're 3 times more likely to become involved in drugs and alcohol abuse, and 3 times more likely to contract HIV, AIDS, and STDs. This is proven by research. Another issue we in the church have created is the lack of spaces and safety for dialogue for mixed orientation couples. And that's where one spouse is gay and the other spouse is straight. People who are gay get married to people who are straight for varying reasons. They may be trying to escape the label of homosexual. They could also not understand their own sexual orientation yet. They may see no other way of forming a family, and they also may see it as the only way in which they can please God. So for whatever reason, marriage with a person to whom you are not emotionally, romantically, or sexually attracted to could be a challenge. There's no safe places within the conservative church to find support for such couples. And believe me, there are lots of them. There is also a constant abuse of myths or stereotypes and misused data that paints the gay and transgender community as dangerous or threats to children. They are often welcome, gay people are often welcome to attend services, but they're kept away from children. This is twisted, deceitful rhetoric at the base of these accusations. The aggressive, uninformed teaching from pulpits depicting lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people as outside the grace of and love of God is just absolutely despicable. Churches are supposed to be safe places for people, even if you consider homosexuality a sin. And in that economy, homosexuality should be no greater sin than other sins, but still we keep people that are lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender out of our churches. And on a separate note, the lack of understanding of the church of transgender people is setting the absolute most marginalized of groups in our society up as the next target of severe discrimination within churches. The conservative church and its teachings on these issues have caused children to be cast out of their families, families to be divided, and relationships to be destroyed. Perceived truth often trumps relationship between parents and children, and parents and families, and children and families. The depth of the pain this has caused is absolutely unimaginable. The stories and mail I get contain excessive pain. I would love for people just to read 1 week of mail that I get from people that have been cast out of churches. In the Torah, God tells his people to care about the treatment of others 33 times. In 5,400 verses, God tells people 33 times to be diligent about how they treat people that are not like themselves. But we see the references that we perceive as homosexuality in the Bible, and that is where we camp. We use these verses that appear only 5 to 7 times in 54,000 verses. We use these verses to discriminate and destroy and to devalue people, but we ignore the times that God tells us to be careful of the treatment of others. And with that kind of focus and repetition, I think God really does mean that he cares how we treat other people. And the conservative church has failed in this admonition to treat the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community with love and kindness and compassion. We are greatly responsible for the rejection and shaming of an entire class of people. And with an eye on the eternal picture, we are also blocking the access to God, who does indeed love them. We just have to get better at understanding what science and history have told us, and socially. So get to know gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender Christians and start to ask them questions and listen to them. Break out of the understanding that you have held on these issues, because we have not had correct and educated teaching on these issues. So I hope that this will help you to go the next step further and question. My name is Kathy Baldock. I'm with Canyon Walker Connections.